Good morning, friends! Today is Liam's first day of middle school, so I just dropped him off. And it's my first day of being unemployed. Last week I vlogged for my channel members my last week at my job. It has nothing to do with books, but if you want to join my channel membership and just hear me talk about my life more, there's a link down below. And now here I'll be vlogging my first week without a job. That's what me in 9th grade me had in common, is being unemployed. I got my first real job in 10th grade. In 9th grade, I was doing some things. I was babysitting, I was pet sitting. I was also volunteering at the SPCA. I think twice a week I was taking the bus from my high school to the SPCA, and I was like cleaning out hamster cages and helping train some puppies, which was like, it's one of my favorite memories. But this is my yearbook from 9th grade, and we're going to be reading books that I read in 9th grade. So I think we'll go through this more later when I'm inside the house and I have more reasonable lighting. So I don't really know why I brought it. I just felt like it. Nostalgia is real today. I took Liam's like morning picture of his first day of school, and now of course I'm gonna go home and look through all of his other ones from like kindergarten and grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3 and grade 4 and grade 5. But I only have a couple hours to myself because his first day's only like a half day. So I'm just gonna grab Starbucks and head home, and I don't know, what does a person do who no longer has a traditional job? I'm gonna be watching a lot of TV and movies this week. That's what I've blocked out for my time. All of my alone time this week. In future weeks, I'm going to get a life plan together and figure out like new, interesting, creative side jobs, pick freelancing up again, and I'm excited to share all of those things with you. But for this week, we're just reading like my 9th grade self, we're watching movies and TV like my 9th grade self, and all of the things that I'm watching and the things that I'm reading are all connected, which I'm very excited about. I have a pretty good memory, right? Like that's one of my skills. That's one thing that makes these videos fun for me, is reminiscing on all of my high school stuff. But what's so funny about 9th grade is all of my memories from 9th grade I thought were 10th grade. So like when I've been planning out all of these videos and what I want to talk about in each one and like significant moments in my life, I put all of this stuff in 10th grade. And then through reading through my Nobody's Perfect journal and my yearbook, I have realized that so many things that I associated with 10th grade me was actually 9th grade me, which in the grand scheme of things does not matter. But it's just been a moment where my memory has been very challenged for the first time, because I remember all of these things with my best friend who I thought I met in 10th grade. I told you in a previous childhood favorites that something that constantly happened to me my entire school time is I was always the new girl's first friend. But in 9th grade, apparently I thought it was 10th. In 9th grade, I met my best friend, who would be my best friend for the rest of high school. Anytime I reference my best friend in any future childhood favorites, this is who I'm talking about. We'll call her C. 9th grade, here's all I have. I have a couple photo booth pictures, and I feel like I look the same. My hair is like the same. But this is what we did for fun in 9th grade and 10th grade and probably 11th grade, is we would go to the mall. We would just hang out at the mall, and we would go in the photo booth and we would take pictures, and we would buy cheap stuff from Spencer's and Claire's. We were lucky enough to have Hot Topics here around that time. I think they were only in the States, so my mom actually drove me down to Spokane, I think the summer of 9th grade, and I spent like $200 that I saved up from all of my pet sitting jobs and my babysitting, and I bought all of my favorite band tees. But anyway, every single grade in my yearbook, we would have an entire page that was full of our inside jokes. So we have one for 9th grade, 2005. Yes, that says, "I would have sex with you." This page also says, "'Cause we're bisexual." That was one of our inside jokes that we would just yell at people when they asked us a question. This one says, "Making out in the photo booth." I guess these are memories and inside jokes. This one says, "The hot blue-haired man at London Drugs." Guess I just really wanted to remember him. "Cosmo at Bean Scene" is one of the memories. Bean Scene was our go-to coffee place. We would go and get chai, and we would just sit on the comfy couches and do nothing. I don't know what we would do. The Red Power Ranger. No idea. Welkmart. There was a woman at Welkmart who accused us of stealing, and we absolutely did not. We weren't the best kids, but we absolutely never stole. So I wrote, "Welkmart lady, what did you put in your pocket?" C, my gum. What did you think I would steal? A used thong? Because Welkmart, it's long gone now, but it was known for like being pretty grungy, and historically there were thongs that they sold there and they were very gross. This one says webcamming all night with Ryan. I don't care about saying his name because this was the years of like chat rooms, MySpace, and like when you first got to like talk to people on your little headset on video games. So Ryan, I actually met playing SOCOM, and he was like this 25-year-old guy from, I think, Toronto. And anytime you came on the chat as a girl, you would get a lot of attention, I'm sure on any game, but on SOCOM, it's like a first-person shooter. I was obsessed with SOCOM, like SOCOM was my life. So there were a lot of guys who we would exchange MSN information, and we would webcam, and we would chat, and it's horrifying to think back on. We were definitely safe, like we were aware. We didn't give out too much personal information. We never planned to meet up with people, but we were constantly chatting with older men on the internet. And there was one night that we pulled an all-nighter just on webcam with this 25-year-old guy, 10 years older than us, in Toronto. Another SOCOM boy is the reason that I'm in love with Pink Floyd to this day. Well, the reason I got introduced to them. There was this group of boys from Winnipeg. I remember all of their names still. I remember what they looked like because we added each other on whatever social media sites we had. It was like internet, like I had like internet boyfriends. One of them was Matt, one of them was Eric, and I remember changing my like MSN. It was so embarrassing. I had real life boyfriends too. I'll tell you about them in a second. But this was the days of like changing, I guess for American people, you probably used like AOL. AIM, I think that's what it's called. It's similar, and you would just be ridiculous on there with your friends, and you would change your like username to whatever, and so you'd always have it as like a quote from a song, like a lyric, or it'd be about your friends. You'd be like, me and this person are hanging out, or this is my best friend, and me and boys would have these little like secret codes. So my status would be like Kayla, blah 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 blah, EMH, which would stand for Eric's my husband, and he would have KMW, Kayla's my wife, just so like we knew that we were like referencing each other, but it was like a secret because having an internet relationship was embarrassing. Anyway, moving on. I'm sure I have screenshots from us like drawing pictures to each other because that's what we would do. So here's some of that. You're welcome. We didn't have digital cameras yet, and webcams weren't great quality, but I know that I have some webcam pictures from this time in my life. We also had a scanner on our printer, and I remember sticking my face in the scanner. I don't have any pictures of this, but I would like have my hair all flowing around my face, and I would scan my face over and over again. As for me in the yearbook, let me see what I can find. Oh, this is the year that I had people sign their names, but they signed it over the pictures of their faces. So for me, you can only see this much of my shirt, but I know what I was wearing. And it was a brown Old Navy shirt that had some orange writing on the front. There's a horrible picture of me that I scribbled out with me and my friends because I look just awful. And then for clubs, I was in field hockey. Again, would have told you this was 10th grade. I don't remember being in field hockey in 9th grade, but there I am. Those shirts were terribly uncomfortable, but the skirt was really cute. I might have been on volleyball, but I'm not in the photo, so either I wasn't or like I quit. And then I was also on yearbook, but I'm not in the yearbook photo, and I don't think I was officially on yearbook because only, I think, it was either 10, 11, and 12 or just 11 and 12th graders were in charge of the yearbook. But there were some younger grades who helped contribute in some ways. So there's actually a picture of me here. That's a mirror in my locker, and I was specifically tasked to help take like a couple pictures just around the school that day to help fill out certain pages of the yearbook. There's another photo of me, and it's my shoe, and it's on the page that says this is grade 10 because every grade has like a little intro page. They asked me to take one, so there's only one 10th grader in this photo, and the rest of them are 8th and 9th graders. And I wrote, that's my shoe, tra-la-la-la. Good morning. I'm home. Alone. I'm home. Alone. All by myself. All day. By myself. Just me. Me and my chicken. What should I do first? Clean my house? You notice too? Okay, let's get it done.
She is literally
a universal feeling of being able to breathe when your house is clean and like focus on other things then. Don't look at my bookshelf. I'm not done cleaning that. I haven't even started cleaning that. I don't know what I'm doing. But let's talk about the theme of the vlog. I'm so hyped about this because around this time in my life is when I started getting into adaptations and enjoying books turned into shows and shows turned into books. I know exactly where it started, and it was our classroom read of Tuck Everlasting. We read this as a class and then watched the movie together. And then I read The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and The Second Summer of the Sisterhood. And then I got to see the movie adaptation in like 2005. I think I actually have a movie stub. This says Sisterhood of the and it's from 2008, so this would have been the second movie. And this is where like we evolved as teenage girls from picking who each Spice Girl was. Like if you had a friend group of 4 or 5 girls, like one of you was Baby Spice, one of you was Sporty Spice. That's just how it was. I was always Baby. And then in middle school, high school, it was, are you Tibby? Are you, what are their names? Tibby, Carmen, hold on, I'll get there. Lena was Alexis Bledel. Oh shoot, I'm gonna have to look. Bridget. And I remember reading both of the books before seeing the movie, but I haven't rewatched that in a very long time. So in this vlog, we're rereading and rewatching. And then because I got into stuff like that was adapted, I also discovered like novelizations of TV shows at this age. So I've been collecting these. First up is Clueless. I loved the movie and I loved the show. And then I've been collecting the Sabrina, the Teenage Witch series. Sabrina was one of my favorite things. It's funny how only recently I've been reading really witchy books and talking about how much I love witch books, when a lot of my favorite TV shows around this time and movies were witchy. Like we rewatched The Craft together. I watched Charmed every single week with my mom, and I watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch like every day when I got home from school, which is why I refused to watch the newer version. I checked out the first episode and I was out. So first I just picked up this because it's the first book and I was like, obviously this is the one I should read. But then I picked up a couple more because I recognized the covers and I figured like when the time comes I'll just pick one. But I don't remember these ones vividly. And then just like a week ago I found this one, and this one I actually remember reading. It's called Lots of Luck. I remember looking at her shirt, falling in love with it, and it says Sabrina's down on her luck just when she needs it most until she finds a magic spell that promises to change her old rabbit's foot into a real lucky charm. Today I'm going to see how many things I can get through, but I would like to watch an episode of Clueless and read this, an episode of Sabrina. I don't know where I'm going to find it. And then I'm also going to watch an episode of Sister Sister. Rob and I rewatched a couple episodes of this in a video. I can't remember what it was. Oh my gosh. There are temporary tattoos in here and they're still in here. This is amazing. I loved anything related to twins. Anytime I wrote like a short story, it revolved around twins. And then I also picked up the novelization of Alex Mack. I don't know anything about these series in general. Just kidding. This one's the 10th in the series, but this one doesn't have a number on it and this one doesn't have a number on it. So I don't know if they're the first ones or the only ones that exist, but I know that I've read them. Alex Mack was a favorite thing years and years earlier, but I didn't discover the book until later. And this is definitely a show that is the most far removed from my memory. I know I loved it, but I don't remember much of anything. I still have such vivid memories of these shows, but this one, besides like her just turning into a silver puddle and like transforming, I don't remember any of the other plot, so I'm really excited to try to find this and watch it. The next thing I'll be reading this week is, I've just been collecting Archie comics for a while. These were my absolute favorite thing. I've talked to you about how every single Sunday my dad would take me to the flea market and I would buy like a 50-cent Archie comic. I always preferred the Betty and Veronica ones, and I've been wanting to reread these in a childhood favorites, but I just didn't know the perfect one, and so now we're gonna do that. No, I'm not gonna be watching Riverdale alongside this, just because I watched the first like half of the first season and it's definitely not for me. But Sabrina is also in here, and Sabrina was always my favorite little mini comics. There are so many. Oh look, right here. I also loved the Josie and the Pussycat moments. Oh, this one has Sabrina, but she looks more traditional, like modern day, which makes me think this is a more recent one. Oh yeah, Betty's not even in a ponytail in these ones. Oh, there's Sabrina right there, right away. This is the Sabrina that I grew up with. And then I have one other thing I'll be reading this week that I'll talk to you about later, and that's Monster. I grabbed the original book and I grabbed the graphic novel so Liam can read it as well. So I'm gonna start with Sister Sister.
Look at those girls. They're so stuck up. Yeah, they're so full of themselves. Let's go talk to them.
Okay, first let me show you my sick new ink, my fresh tats. Look at these. First realization, these tattoos are 25 years old. I don't trust the materials. Secondly, these are 25 years old and I don't understand how they're made because they're definitely not like a tattoo you'd buy nowadays. I had to put soap on my arm and then stick it on and then just take it off. And it's just like, looks like paint. Let me get this off of me now. Oh, great. So easy. Okay, I ended up watching an episode from like every single season of Sister Sister, as you do. I thought it was great. Every episode has like a lesson, and this book was similar. I watched one episode. It's funny because there was one where Tamara was obsessed with this group of girls at school and she felt like she had to change everything about her appearance to fit in so they would like her. And by the end of it, the moral of the story is like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, or like beauty's are skin deep, or like it's the inside that matters. I think all of those phrases were used in the episode. And then in this one, Tia joins this like scientist club where only certain smart girls are invited. They call themselves the Einsteinettes, and it splits the girls up and they start to feel like insecure at different points. So many of the stories are about like jealousy and fitting in, and by the end they always come back together and they're like, but our sisterhood is the most important thing. So I'm glad that I read it. It was fun. You can tell it was written by an old white lady though. That's all I'll say. Now moving on to Sabrina. I had to get Apple TV, but now I have access to all of the episodes. And I'm gonna watch one from every season.
Just the perfect little witch.
Okay, I finished all of these. I've been watching so much TV. I'll say this holds up, the show. These ones, not so much, but that's fine. And calling them novelizations was definitely the wrong word. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I didn't know if these were specific episodes that were just turned into books, which would have been a novelization. But what they actually are is just like spin-off kind of stories, which is actually so fun when you think of it. Like, I'm sure some of you enjoy fan fiction or like writing fan fiction. So imagine being tasked as an author to like take this show that you love so much and you know so much about, and then getting to write your own stories about like what you think the character would do in this type of scenario. I think this is a really cool concept for a job. So all of these had so much essence of the shows, but had their own like little moral of the story. Like, all of these are intended to have something that you take away from the end of the story, like a lesson. And it's the same with the episodes. Once you kind of watch it so much, you realize like the formula to the episodes and how it's like teaching you something every time. But I will say it's like kind of exhausting. The first 30 pages of each of these just recaps the show. Obviously it's necessary because they don't know how many episodes you've seen and they want to make sure you're on the same page. So I feel like these have to be read at a certain time in the series. So like this must have come out after the first season, so like you knew some of the relationships and stuff, and then it just built off of those. But it also can't do anything too wild that like messes up the canon of the show. This one was about like saving the environment, and they go to clean up a beach, which I talked to you about before, how one of my favorite video games was the Mary-Kate and Ashley one where they clean up the beach. Dawn is also my favorite character from the Babysitters Club, who's like the very environmental one, and she plays her in the movie. And the thing with all of these is, even though like this girl has like science fiction abilities, this girl's magic, this girl's just like rich and privileged, there is always something about like their abilities beyond like the average other teenager, and that's a big part of the lessons. So it's like, take your power and privilege and use it for good. Like, don't take advantage of your powers. Like, don't try to cut corners and make everything easy for yourself just because you have magic. Like, you still need to just live a normal teenage girl existence and think about others and do the right thing. Rewatching clips of this was very interesting. It's rough. It's real rough. It was like a mix of really grungy animation and realistic stuff, and it's too hard to watch. If you want to find clips, there are clips on YouTube if you can't find the actual shows. I found all of the seasons of Sabrina, and it's funny because once you get to the last seasons of Sabrina, where she goes off to college, a lot of the characters on that show are on this show. I got to see them a lot. And if you love Melissa Joan Hart as much as me, you should definitely join my channel membership. Not to promote it again, but like, our movie nights are so much fun, and we're watching Drive Me Crazy this Thursday, Friday, and I think it's gonna be lots of fun. This one has one of my favorite like tropes in TV shows, especially, is there's always an episode of a show where a character has an item and then they lose it or they trade it, and then they have to go throughout the episode to like 10 different people and keep trading their thing for someone else's thing, and they just keep like going amongst all these people. There's a Recess episode that definitely does that I love, and in this one there's a lucky rabbit's foot, and she sees the impact that the luck has on every person that it comes into contact with, and then she has to get it back. This one was rough. It's called Cher's Furiously Fit Workout. I have no idea how many there are in the series, but this one is about her making like a workout DVD. It's also about her best friend Dee connecting with her roots. Like I said, the intros of all of these books are very arduous. In this one, I found it hilarious because just the way that Cher, I wonder how each book introduces this whole backstory every time. Like, is it the same every time? They must have come up with different creative ways to do this, but it says, I'm a Caucasian American princess with swingy, shiny blonde hair and a designer wardrobe to die for. Dee's African American teenage royalty with hazel eyes and a sharp-tongued wit to die from. We bonded immediately. And it just like goes into the history of their friendship. And then Dee becomes friends with these three new girls, Essence, Shaniqua, and Shawana. And then Cher makes fun of their fake hair extensions and doesn't understand why Dee like needs to be friends with them. The thing about all of these side characters is all of their storylines just like prop up Cher and her character development, and that's always going to be a part of the book series and a part of the show. And I don't know that like this author in this series should have taken on Dee's story. Maybe she should have gotten her own spin-off show like Joey got after Friends, because she's by far like a more enjoyable character to read about and to watch. The thing that both of these talked about is also like power dynamics between older men, or sorry, not this, but I was thinking about the show, and internet safety was covered. So in this one, she's making like a workout tape, and there's an older man who's like trying to control her and her image and like also hitting on her. And then in Sister Sister, one of my favorite episodes that I watched has to do with like internet safety and talking to this guy over email who wants to photograph the twins. And then there's a moment where he like locks them in a room, and the show still has its classic like laugh track going, and there's like jokes that the girls are making about how unsafe they are, but like it's a genuinely unsafe and tense moment, and I don't remember shows like getting that intense when I was that age. And I just love that it touched on like, you don't know who you're talking to, you can't trust everyone, because of course I talked about internet safety earlier. I had one friend, this is a letter because I had an internet pen pal at this age, the one girl who I trusted to give my address to, and we shared, I think we only shared like one letter back and forth, and then we just talked over the internet for many, many years. Her name was Geraldine, and she felt especially safe because she was in Australia. And then this year in French, we had to choose French names, which is a whole other thing. I saw this thread on Twitter recently that was very interesting about taking other languages in schools and the schools that had you choose another name, and like how that's so damaging to certain communities. Anyway, but I chose the name Geraldine in my French class. We had a list of names to choose from, and I think I did it because of my bestie pen pal. We would have met in a chat room, probably OptiChat. I remember OptiChat being like the place to be. Oh my god, she also wrote me a list of fun things to do at the mall. Go into the change rooms and yell, hey, we're out of toilet paper in here. There were definitely photos in here of her and like her family, and then I sent my photos. One photo I just found on the computer that I thought I would show you was definitely must have been very early grade 9. My hair grows really fast, which makes figuring out the timeline of some photos difficult, but I highlighted my hair with like one of those caps that you stick the thing in and you pull out little strands, and my mom bleached my hair in late 8th grade and 9th grade. And I got the Canada Cord, which is like this award that you have to work really hard and do all these like activities and things with your Pathfinder Girl Guide group. Actually, I think I still have my pin. Okay, one pin I have is a Spark one. This one I got like the next year, the year after, when I was a Spark leader. And then this one is my Canada Cord pin, which you would just like wear on your sash every time you were in your uniform. And then my hair grew longer, and then I dyed the underneath black soon after. Very Avril Lavigne, Christina Aguilera inspired. Next up, we have my reread of Tuck Everlasting. I already watched the movie. It was a couple weeks ago with my channel members, but all of my movie nights always stay up and they're like muted, so all you can hear is me, so you can watch them anytime if you just want someone to hang out with while you're watching a movie. They're always there. But for this one, I wanted to see if the experience would be better watching it before reading it. What I do a lot in these childhood favorites is I will read a book and then I'll watch the movie. But what I thought would be fun this time is to watch the movie before the book, because I want to see if the movie gives me what I want or if I can get more of the story from the book after the film, because I don't remember which one I preferred. Hopefully my memory will be jogged throughout watching this with everyone. I have my webcam set up and piles of books. Don't look at that. This woman is acting very strange for somebody who's participating in the entrapment of a teenage girl. He gives big Peter Pan vibes. I can't watch this anymore. I think there's a lot of, I feel like I've seen that scene like 10 different times. The boy's in the water and he's like, come jump in. And then she jumps in. She's not going to drink. Bella Swan would be in the spring. Fuck. Okay, so the moral of the story is whatever. Enjoy your life while you have it. Live in the moment, if you will. Tuck Everlasting is a weird one to rate and give a review for. It's one of those odd movies that I wouldn't say it's better than the book, but it gives more than the book. So like hoping that I would get more of the storyline and get to know the characters better or like understand certain motives better. That wasn't actually the case. As far as enjoyment goes, I liked it. I wouldn't consider this like a favorite book of all time, but I do see why it was a favorite at this time. And since I'm pretty sure it was paired with the movie, like we consumed it all at the same time, I definitely had a certain amount of enjoyment regarding Winnie and Jesse's romance, which was not present in the book at all. I'm just assuming that a lot of my enjoyment had to do more with the movie than the book. I think this holds up. I would still recommend it to kids these days. It reads very much like a fairy tale. The storytelling style and the type of dialogue, it's very one-sided and kind of just describes like how the character is reacting to the character who's speaking. It ends the same, which I appreciate, and I respect what this author was doing with the book. Do I like the ending? No, absolutely not. And it's not just because like Winnie and Jesse don't end up together. And it's tough because I love a book with an open ending and that like you are responsible for figuring out the moral of the story. But I do wish some things were like described better, like who we were really supposed to be caring about. I know the story is about Winnie and the Tuck family, but I don't know who I'm really supposed to care about as far as like the intent of the book. Like, is the point of the book something about the Tuck family and your takeaway is supposed to be something about mortality? Or are you supposed to care about Winnie and her story and her like ability to make the decision for herself that she doesn't want to be immortal? Because either one of those things, like we didn't really get a clear goal of the story. Because like Jessie just comes back and sees that Winnie's gravestone is there. She obviously never drank the special water, but she's 10 in here. And he's like, hey, when you're 17, drink the water and then like come back and find me. But it's not like a romantic thing. I'm sure it could be. And like you're left with, you know that Winnie was a wife and a mother. But that doesn't really mean that she lived a fulfilling life. And the movie at least hinted at some things that like she or Jesse or they wanted to do together. Like, he wanted to take her to the Eiffel Tower and they wanted to do all of these things. And the frustrating thing about the movie is the fact that, like, she still could have done those things and not been immortal. Like, she could have spent her life just enjoying her life, and she could have been with Jesse if she wanted to be. So when he comes back and he just finds out that she died, like, you're not really left with anything satisfying, because even if you are supposed to feel like, oh, she made her own decisions, like, that's good for her, you don't know anything about her entire life. And in the book, like, we just didn't get to know any dreams or aspirations for, like, anybody. So that just left me with a sense of, like, not really caring that they didn't find each other again or do more with their lives. I know, like, hardcore fans will say, oh, this was implied and this was implied and you're supposed to take away this and you're supposed to think about this after you finish the book and, like, come to your own conclusions. But sometimes I do like things spelled out a little more. It's funny because there's a little Q&A with the author in the back, and one of the questions is, what do you want readers to remember about your books? And she said, the questions without answers. So that's fine. Well, my day definitely didn't go as planned. I had a maintenance and oil change appointment for the Jeep at 1 p.m. and I'm now leaving and it's 5 p.m. I had all of these great plans for the day. I was going to take you to some places that I used to hang out. I was going to talk over some things, but I just need to call it a day. The good news is I know all the news about what's going on in Detroit, because that was the only channel the TV was on. There was no remote, no volume control. So I sat in the waiting area for 4 hours and I heard the same news stories 20 times. I know all about the balloon store that was robbed and the man who got a kidney donation from his son, who's not biological, but it still worked out for them. I was so happy. My phone also died, but I got through all 3 of the Archie comics that I brought with me. I thought maybe I'd get through just a couple stories in one, but I got through all of them and they're everything that I remember. A little misogynistic, a little fat phobic, weird the way they talk about, like, ugly people, but overall it was a fun experience. Now I need to go home. I'll try this all again tomorrow when the stores are all back open and everything and the sun is not setting on my face. Another day of nostalgia is here. Hold for the fire truck. Okay, I'm currently at the mall, which is my #1 place to hang out in 9th grade for sure. I have to pick up a couple things. Today's a day of errands, but while I'm out and about, I'm gonna take you to a couple different places, probably just like sitting in my vehicle and just like filming random things as I drive by. This was definitely our thing though, was either taking the city bus or getting a ride to the mall after school, sometimes during school. Mom, don't watch this. But usually after school. I also just remembered that 9th grade was the one year that my brother had his license and drove me to school. So I think my entire 9th grade, he like drove me everywhere. And that's the year that he graduated, and then I started taking the bus again, or making my dad drive me. The mall looks completely different now, but here's where the photo booth used to be, the way we would take our pictures. And my friend group definitely wasn't shopping at the mall. We did not have money to do that. Now that I remember, Walmart used to actually be in our mall. So I know me and my friend would go to Walmart constantly, and that's where we bought most of our clothes. And then we would just like circle the rest of the mall, as you do, and like look through the windows and not buy anything. This intersection right here is interesting because you can see both of the places that I worked in high school and 2 places that I hung out, which was here at the mall, and then across where there's now like car dealerships and stuff, used to be a bunch of little buildings, and there was a bunch of benches outside of them, and we would just sit on those benches. Mostly I would sit there with a boy. Around this time, Kelowna had a really bad rabbit infestation problem. I just went and Googled it to see like what the year specifically was, and it's funny how much of the news this took up, because the first thing that I see is Kelowna's Enterprise Way rabbit free since 2008. So from 2004 to 2008, we had a huge rabbit problem in this specific part of town. And every single year, the city would hire like this different group of people to get rid of the rabbits. And I remember there being like protests about the means in which they were getting rid of them, because some places wanted to catch them, some places wanted to kill them. And it was like this big thing, especially with me volunteering at the SPCA. That's something that I also took the city bus to. It looks different now again, but I would come here like twice a week after school and volunteer. But yeah, so when we hung out here, there was always rabbits. You would just be surrounded by them, and it was like a thing that you would do. You would go and you would just hang out on the benches and be surrounded by rabbits. Until apparently 2008 when it was finally solved. Okay, I'm back with a giant bag filled with fluff. Because of course, all home stuff was 30% off. And of course they had an entire navy section, like they know that I just bought a navy couch and I want all of the navy stuff. So I grabbed this blanket and now I'm covered in this and Rob's gonna kill me. I found this. I needed a new agenda scheduler thing, but so many of the weekly ones have like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday are like combined. And as someone who has more to do on the weekends than otherwise, I just needed to find one covered in hair that it was separated. And this looks cute. Then I got a mug. If you saw my Instagram stories, I needed you to vote. I always lean towards the white ones, but I knew this was the right answer, and that's what you voted for. It says, "Hello, pumpkin. This is my ideal hair color. This is my perfect color. Just this like clay, terracotta, orange, burnt something. Like, I love this." And Pumpkinhead was my nickname growing up. And then I can't show you any of the books because they're all for future videos. I need to turn my car on. Sorry, it's hot. To talk about what I'm reading, it's a Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. I'm 50 pages in so far, and I don't know how to feel about it yet. It is quite different from the movie from what I remember, but I will be rewatching the movie. I don't remember any of the girls like having siblings, but in the book, Bridget has a twin brother and Lena has a younger sister named Effie. And I'm now remembering Effie has like a significant impact on this and her relationship with her Greek boyfriend. We've already had some fun conversations about how used clothes are for poor people and they're dirty. Honestly, the part that's bugging me the most is that all of these girls are supposedly Virgos. Like, that's not real. And you cannot tell me that Carmen doesn't give off like bi energy, lesbian energy. I don't remember like what she goes through in this series, but dude, she is in love with Lena. For one, she says the only imperfect thing about Lena is the size of her feet, because they're ginormous and a 9.5. And I wonder how I felt about that reading it as a teen, because I've definitely always been a 9.5 too. But Carmen basically says that Lena is so beautiful she gives her a stomachache. She calls her lovely and delicate, and then when Lena, when she tries on the pants, Carmen breathes, "Jesus, Lena." At least that's how it was in my head. You could maybe convince me that Lemon? That's my ship name for Lena and Carmen. You could maybe convince me that Lena or Carmen are Virgos, but Bridget is an Aries and Tibby is a Pisces. As far as who I identified with, like once we went through the Spice Girls phase and there was a Babysitters Club phase, I don't think that I associated myself with any of these girls specifically. I think I have characteristics of Bridget and Carmen and Tibby. I don't want to say Lena, and I feel like I especially didn't want to say Lena in like when I was reading it and all of my friends were reading this. The bookish girls were always like the ones with the steady boyfriends. They were always the kindest ones. They were always like the shyest and the soft-spoken. I'm talking Marianne from Babysitter's Club, Lena from here, I don't know, Meg from Little Women. She wasn't the most bookish, but there's like always a girl in the group who like is the first to get in a relationship, and she's always like the nerdy, kind, gentle one. So like now, yeah, maybe I feel more like a Lena and a Meg and a Marianne. Anyway, I'm gonna keep powering through this. I want to finish this today. Oh, here I am just romanticizing my life in Lower Mission as a child. Behind me is Swamp Road. This is like the longest road in this area that has no like stop signs or lights or anything. And it's literally built on a swamp, so they have to repave it every couple years because it gets super bumpy. And what you would do is you would get in a car with all of your friends, which was illegal because you couldn't have more than one passenger. But you would basically just get all together and drive as fast as you could down Swamp Road with all of the bumps, and you'd just be flying all over the place. So while I will be taking the drive at a legal speed, I'm just gonna take a drive down memory lane, down Swamp Lane. So this spot I have a great memory from of putting on rollerblades for the first time in 8th or 9th grade, and having no idea how they worked, and my friends all did, and we started at the top of the little path. It's a lot steeper than it looks, and everybody just zoomed down to the bottom, and they were like, come on Kayla, you can do it. And I did it and had no idea how to stop, and so I was like, well, if nothing else, I can grab onto those bars when I get to the bottom of the hill. Obviously overestimating my ability to do so. So I hit the thing and my knees hit the thing, and I was flat on the ground for like 20 minutes, and all my friends were like, are you okay? I had the wind knocked out of me. I was probably more dramatic about it than I needed to be, but oh my God, it is some of the worst pain I've ever been in. I didn't break anything. I've never broken anything. But that's in my neighborhood where I grew up. And if you look right across, you can see the bridge. That bridge got built in like 2007, 2008. Prior to that, we had a floating bridge that had like a, I don't remember what it's called, but it had a lift. It was like the first of its kind in Canada, and it would lift up, I want to say every couple hours, and it would take like 15-20 minutes to do the whole thing, like to have traffic stop, and then it would lift up, and any like large boats, tall boats could go under at that time, and then it would come back down. So if you grew up in Kelowna like before 2008 when the new bridge got built, which is totally different, you know that it was like a thing. If you had friends on the west side, it was such an inconvenience. If there was ever a party on the west side, it would be like such a big thing. You would like make friends with somebody or make plans, and then at the last minute someone would be like, oh, by the way, it's on the west side, and you'd be like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me that to begin with? I wouldn't have agreed to go, because it was such a hassle getting across the lake. I'm sure we made it a bigger deal too than it really was. I'm done my errands now. I stopped at HomeSense to get a couple things for Liam's desk in his room because he started school, so I need to like fully set up that area for his success. I'll just show you a clip now of once I've put it all together. Stopped a couple other places, and now my last stop is my old job where I stole this mouse from. I need to return it. So I finished the book and I just finished the movie, and it's a really good adaptation. I don't know why or how or when in my life I thought that this movie was different from the book. It's not. It's pretty spot on. Besides some plot lines and a few characters like I mentioned, everything is pretty similar as far as the intent of the storylines. It's funny because the parts that I wanted to skim over the most in the book were Lena, just because they were so boring and nothing happened. Like, she had, I don't know, one conversation with Costas the entire time. And in the movie, they pitch it more of like a Romeo and Juliet type of thing. So in the movie, their families hate each other. In the book, their families start to hate each other, but because of Lena. She basically, kind of unintentionally, but then doesn't do a lot to stop it, has her family believing that he did something to her. So she goes and swims in the ocean naked, and he sees her, and she decides that he followed her there and was spying on her, and runs back to her family and is like, he is not a nice boy, and she's crying. And so her family thinks the worst of him, and then there's this like beef between the families. But then eventually like they're together, and she's like, sorry, everyone thought you hurt me. Very weird. In the movie, he's much more of like the love interest, an active participant. And then the parts in the movie that I wanted to skim over were Tibby's. So maybe it's just because it was so similar to this that I wasn't that interested in it. She meets this girl and she's making documentaries with her, and then she dies. That's Tibby's whole storyline. And I think Tibby's growth is more apparent in the book, and like how her perspective changes on the world. There's some really good Tibby Carmen moments in here too. In the movie, it was much more all four of them together. All four of them go to Carmen's dad's wedding in the movie, which I think is a really beautiful way to end it. In the book, I think Carmen was alone. She had pretty much the same relationship with her dad's new family. Basically, her dad didn't tell her that he was getting married and living with this woman and her children. And so she literally shows up at her dad's house, and he's like, oh, this is my new family. And also like, I'm pretty much gonna ignore you the entire trip here. Sometimes what happens in childhood books is when I reread them, I find myself connecting with the parent more so than the child. And I'm like, oh, all of the things that I thought about that parent, and I hated that parent when I read the book when I was a teen, I now understand where they're coming from, and I empathize with them more. That was not true in here. I hated the dad equally this time as when I was 15. He's not an outright bad guy or villain, and I'm glad that they had the conversation at the end where he's like, I'm sorry, and she like doesn't accept his apology. But my least favorite part of this entire thing is definitely Bridget and Eric's relationship. In the movie, they aged them up I think 2 years. In here, they're all 15 and they're going to turn 16 by the end of the summer, but I'm going to say they're 17 in the movie. Does that make me feel any better about her sleeping with her soccer coach and losing her virginity at soccer camp? No, because I don't think we really saw the repercussions for him. It's tough. I think Amber Shares really tried and wanted to navigate a teenage girl being reckless. Every single moment he's like, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this, like I should have been more responsible, but they still did it. And at the end, he, like in the movie, he visits her, but in both he says something like, well, when you're 20 and I'm 25, then I hope you'll still give me a chance or whatever. And it's like, that's just not the conversation that I think it should have ended on. Seeing how broken Bridget is, at the very least, a conversation that's more like, I hope that you end up with someone your own age and who you have more in common with, and I'll do the same. So I don't know how to feel about some things, but I enjoyed the adaptation, and I've decided that I'm pushing this video an entire day because I am going to read the second book and watch the second movie. I need to know what happens after, because maybe my memory is that the second and third book got combined into the second movie, because this was such a good adaptation, but my memory of the series is that I didn't like the adaptations as much as the books. I think it was last episode that I brought you into my childhood closet. I guess I've always kept books in my closet. Weird realization. And I also keep Liam's books in his closet now. Anyway, I showed you some books, I showed you some things, and what I felt the most nostalgic for was my magazine collection. I got rid of those when I was 19 and I moved out of my parents' house. I wasn't going to move the entire stack with me. As much as I would have loved to, I had to get rid of them, which I regret now because you can get a pretty penny for those things on eBay. How do I know? Because I ordered some. I'm telling you, this was not a casual love of mine. I was a magazine collector. I did not miss a month of my favorites. So I grabbed 4. I'm so excited that I fully recognized the covers of, and I got one of each of my favorites. We have Hilary Duff. This is 2007, so this isn't the year we're talking about, but there weren't a lot of Cosmo girls to pick from. Next, I grabbed Twist, which was absolutely my favorite, and I remember this one vividly because I love Laura Prepon. This one was from 1999. And then this one is Mandy Moore on 17 August 2003. This one is Teen Vogue, and it just says August. August 2005. Okay, this is the one that is right on the money. And my love of Evan Rachel Wood is very apparent in the journal reading I just did. Something that I did for all of my magazines is I would find pretty much every time there was a face, and I would cut the person out and I would glue them in a binder, and I would write a story. The skirt and the little shrug, this perfectly embodied everything that we were doing. All of the models are extremely skinny and a little too photoshopped. This is what I thought I was gonna do when I graduated. I'm sure I'll talk about that in 12th grade when we have to go through my portfolio, but I 100% wanted to do this type of stuff as a job in magazines. This girl kind of looks like Chandler. This also perfectly embodies 2005. The visible underwear out of your pants. Oh my god, and magazines were so obsessed with categorizing people. I think all you wanted when flipping through these is you wanted to see where you fit. You wanted to be told you had a heart face or an oval face. You wanted to be told you were a sporty girl or a fashionista. So this cell phone situation is just great. Best thing in here so far? An ad for Laguna Beach. Ah! Today I'm having a nice chill day at home, as I've been doing all week. I'm drinking out of my Hello Pumpkin mug. It's empty now. Today I filmed some clips for some other booktubers to do things. I did a little video call with Meg for something that you'll see in the future. And I finished the second summerhood of the Sisterhood. The second summer of the Sisterhood. And I'm currently watching the movie. I'm almost done. It's taking me a while to get through it just because I'm not in love with the second movie. Pretty sure that the movie is actually the second, third, and fourth book, all kind of combined. I'm shocked by all of the cameos I completely forgot about in the second movie. Lucy Hale is in the movie, and she does play Effie. And then Lena is falling for this new boy from Grey's Anatomy. In the movie, Tibby just had a pregnancy scare, which, this came out in 2008, and I know that I took Plan B multiple times in 2008, so it's just very strange to me that that was never even a part of the story. It was she's with Brian, their first time together, the condom breaks, and then she's just like, well, I guess I might be pregnant. I'm sure that has something to do with the rating of the movie or the studio, or like how much the movie really wanted to get into her choices, because she talks about like, well, what are my choices? But then they don't really get into it. One thing I'm really glad that the movie skipped is Bridget's storyline in the movie is she goes on this archaeological dig and then goes and visits her grandma. And that dig that she goes on, I feel like, is in the 4th book. And she does visit her grandma in this one, but she visits her and she has dyed her hair a little darker and she's gained 15 pounds. And like the whole book is about how she's pretending to be someone else, and she goes and like lives with her grandma pretending that she's someone else. And at the end of the book she's like, I'm Bridget, I'm your granddaughter, and her grandma's like, yeah, I knew that all along. And that's just such like a weird part of this book. So it was great that in the movie she just like showed up and her grandma was like, hey B, and B was like, you recognize me? And she was like, duh. So that was great. Also, she obviously doesn't look any different in the movie, and I'm glad, just because the conversation around her gaining weight and how she looks in here, did not like that. I'm gonna wrap up the movie and then I'm gonna get on to my next book, and that's Monster. This is by Walter Dean Myers. I read this, I don't remember a ton about it. I remember the general storyline, but I'll talk to you more about it as I read. And I picked up the graphic novel that perhaps Liam and I will read together. I'll do a quick skim and see what types of conversations we might have throughout it. And I originally read this because of a boy. So my best friend and I would take the city bus, we would go downtown, we would go to the mall, we would do whatever. And there was this boy that she was dating. Let's call him Jay because his name started with a J. It's just so funny when I talk about these things, because like anybody watching this who knows me in real life like knows exactly who these conversations are about. But so she was dating Jay, and Jay had a best friend that we'll call V. So the 4 of us would hang out a lot. I don't really remember how they even met originally, because we went to different schools from the boys. He was such a nice guy. He was my best friend's boyfriend's best friend. Like, we were perfect for each other in my mind. And he was bookish. Like, I found it hard to meet guys who I was interested in who also were readers. The types of guys that I knew that were readers were just not the type of guy I was interested in. But V was. And he recommended that I read Monster because he said that it was something that meant a lot to him. So we talked on the phone a lot. We bonded over books. I'm sure I made him read some things. This is the only book that I really remember us like discussing. And finally, after hanging out as a group and chatting on the phone, we finally went on a date together. He asked me out, I took the bus, he took the bus, and we met up at the mall. We crossed the street and we sat on the bench surrounded by bunnies, and we kissed, and he asked me to be his girlfriend on the bench, and it was the most romantic moment of my life. I went home and I called all my girlfriends and I told them all about it, and how I had a boyfriend and he was so perfect, and how we kissed amongst the bunnies. And then that night, that same night, he called me and he broke up with me because he said that his mom thought that I lived too far away because he lived on the west side, and it was just an unrealistic relationship to be able to keep up with. Or that was just an excuse and he just like changed his mind. But yeah, I had a boyfriend for 6 hours in 9th grade. I think that's the only boy that I dated in 9th grade. But I got a book out of it that was good, memorable. So I'll check in with you again once I have read some of this. So I consumed this story 3 times today. I'm a little emotionally spent, so we're gonna do a quick like wrap up of the whole video. Ultimately, I decided that this isn't the right age for Liam. It is a YA book, so its target is like 15 to 18. He's 11. Upon reading the graphic novel, I really like respect that it stayed so true to this text. It didn't age it down, but that makes it not completely appropriate for Liam. I think 13 would probably be a good age. He's not too young to have many of the conversations that this book sparks. And we are engaging in lots of different conversations with books we have already read this year and will continue to read that are more age appropriate, but it's more like specific language, both in its like graphic nature with the type of words that are used, as well as like the actual meaning of a lot of words. So I'm holding on to these. If you're planning on picking one of these up, I actually think the graphic novel is a very well done adaptation of this story, and I would totally recommend it, especially because so much of it already is written in the type of text that can be enjoyed with additional illustrations. So yeah, the movie is also very good. It stays true to the story and gives you more. So if you too read this, especially as a teen like I did, you might be left with some like questions, and there's a bit of an ambiguous ending, or not completely ambiguous. I don't really know how to describe it. I just feel like different people and at different ages might interpret things differently, and it is apparent by some of the reviews that I've seen on Goodreads. There are some horrifying reviews for this on Goodreads. The story involves a 16-year-old boy named Steve, and he is on trial for participating in a murder. And I guess this was the first like trial type book that I read and didn't fully acknowledge that. I've been talking lately how I think I love legal thrillers, and this has a lot of courtroom stuff. It's also written as kind of like a screenplay because he is a filmmaker, and so to kind of separate himself from his situation, he's looking at it through a certain lens to distance himself. There's a Q&A with the author in which he talks about the fact that he says, I would love to see this book into a movie, which is cool because it did get turned into a movie. It was 22 years later, and I wonder, because the book and the movie are a little bit different, I wonder how he would feel, because I think he's very clear about his intent with certain things, and the movie just gives so much more. The performances are fantastic. You get such a broader idea of who Steve is and what he cares about and his relationships, and you get to see a lot of scenarios that you don't necessarily get as thorough of an explanation of in here. I really don't want to spoil anything because I know you don't come to my childhood rereads for recommendations, but I really would recommend you check this out, and if nothing else, then watch the movie. And I don't want to spoil for you like the direction that it goes, because I just think it's really interesting. I think it just leads to so many more conversations than just guilt and innocence and prejudice and systemic racism, but I think it makes you confront certain things about the judicial system and what in your mind the goal of a prison sentence is. If it's about punishment, if it's about rehabilitation, if it's about learning a lesson. It's obviously a very difficult story, and the time in which it came out, you know, I know that a lot of people, a lot of Black folks are frustrated that a lot of media right now, media that's getting attention, is about pain and about trauma. So like, it's cool that somebody's book got adapted and, you know, we get to see this idea come to life, but also like, this isn't the only type of story to be told. So I also just want to encourage everybody to, if you're going to consume this media, which I recommend, also engage in some media after, before, all the time that is about joy and happiness. To recap, I had a good reading couple weeks. It's usually a week, but it expanded. These ones definitely led to some interesting conversations. Tuck Everlasting, I still recommend. These ones, I don't really know if they're worth anybody's time. Not that anybody was probably going to go back and find them. These ones in these series, I think, are definitely something enjoyable and nostalgic that hold up for me, especially the shows. And then Archie comics will always be my favorite thing. As outdated as they are and as cringy as they can be, there's always a sense of comfort with an Archie comic for me. And then just an update on my schedule, it's making me very happy. I don't know if Indigo ships worldwide, but I'll check and try to leave a link, because I realized that I love how these are split up day to day, and I've been using my Hooli printer, which is just my favorite thing, obviously. And I've been printing out these little social media stickers, and I've been using the AM to plan my day and the PM as just like social stuff instead and planning everything for the week. And it's giving me such a good sense of organization because behind the scenes, I've just been floundering a little bit this past week and a half of what my life looks like now and what I do with my time. And time moves so much faster when you don't have structure to your day. So I'm really excited to continue exploring this new creative part of my life, and this is helping schedule it a lot. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. I don't think I have a question for you. Actually, I do have a question for you. I might have asked you in like a really early childhood favorites, but I want to know your childhood favorites in the comments below. I am eventually going to do an episode. My next episode is going to be my mom's favorite books. After that, we're going to go to 10th and 11th grade, and then I'm going to read your favorite childhood books, and then we'll do 12th grade. But it'll be helpful to combine all of the favorites here. So if you stayed until the end, and if you're here and if you're hearing me talk still after all of this time, please do me a favor and leave your childhood favorites down below. Whether you had to read it for school or you picked it up on your own. I know there are some classics that I never ended up reading that I'm excited to give a go. So again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your comments in advance, and I will see you later. Bye.